Sense that I have parents that care about me, and because of that, when I would go out and do, you know, things like drugs and stuff like that, I'd feel a tremendous amount of guilt because I'd think, oh, they're thinking about me right now. They want me to do good.
We didn't do it to be cathartic, but it turned out that that's what happened. I mean, it forced me to understand a lot more of what Nick was going through, and I think it forced him to see what I was going through, and that brought us closer together. Brought us closer together because we started understanding each other a little bit.
I can give for wanting to tell a story like this is that it's even more powerful to tell it about someone who is going through this and they're given everything and they're in an opulent situation and they're still deciding to go to the drugs. And that's more powerful than some, in our opinion, that's the only story that we know. We don't know any other story besides that.
And I think, you know, it cuts across socioeconomic boundaries. I mean, if you look what's going on now with the heroin epidemic around the country, it's you know, invading white middle-class suburban neighborhoods. So it doesn't really it crosses all economic boundaries, and you know, difficulties that you have are not you know, relegated to only you know, people who are unprivileged. You know.
How bad did it get at home between the two of you?
It's reflected in the movie where the father character talks about how, you know, he didn't know what to do, so he listened to anybody who had a desk and a diploma to do exactly what you're talking about. But the truth of the matter is, you have to be who you are. And I made mistakes in that I didn't go with my gut instinct and the feel, and I know Nick better than, you know, some expert who's never met him. And I think had I listened to my own instincts, I would have done a lot better by Nick. But you know, you do what you do. You're a parent, and you think, here's my kid running out into the street, he's going to get hit by a truck, or you want to keep him safe. So you do what they tell you. You feel you're at their mercy. But what I feel after all of this is, it's not about punishing. If somebody has, you know, is struggling and has difficulties, you don't punish them for that. And I think a lot of these programs feel like, the kid is being punished. And I don't think that's a great way to go. I mean, how do you feel about it, Nick?
About what part of it?
About what I was just saying about the idea of, you know, the tough love and all of that stuff.
You know, I'm here, so it worked.
You didn't understand him at the time. How well do you think parents can understand teenagers while they're teenagers?
Well, it's tough. It's tough in any situation, even if there isn't, you know, drugs or alcohol involved. Kids are going through a rough time. They're trying to get their own identities, trying to make that break from their parents. But what I learned, and we talk about it in the film, is that I was scared, you know, and I did whatever, you know, as we say in the film, anybody with a desk and a diploma, I listened to, because you don't know what to do. Your first charge as a parent, keep your child safe. And so I wanted to do whatever I could do to keep him safe. And what I didn't do was listen to my own gut, because ultimately it comes down to the parent and the child. You know your child best. And it's what was your instinct? My instinct is to have really tried to understand exactly what was causing his problems, because it's not the taking of the drugs or the alcohol. It's underneath that you have emotional difficulties. This taking of drugs is like self-medicating. You're trying to feel better, make yourself feel better. So you have to try to understand what it is that's causing the discomfort and the pain. And in every kid's case, it's different. And the parent's going to know that, or at least understand that better than anybody else.
For everyone, it's different. For me, the noise was basically, you know, living in the family that I live in and catching heat for that sort of stuff. And also just...
For being a Reiner?
I guess. I mean, people would like to think that's a real bigger deal than it actually is. But it's really like, I was an emotional kid who had problems, and I just was not so fond of myself. So I kind of, you know, had problems in that way. But in terms of the thing you were saying before, it's like, I think that our relationship was not as it was portrayed in the film. Like, there were this sort of like holding the line and being tough, but like, we didn't ever argue like quite like that. I mean, we did, I guess, to a degree, but it was never...
He was fiery. You don't seem very fiery to me. You seem like you might just...
I get crazy.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
You don't want to set me off.
Some big blow-ups there.
No, we both can get
You
pretty...
don't roll easily either.
No, we can
so-
both get pretty hot, and there were times when we did get hot. But
you weren't like cold like that. He was very loving and compassionate. I just think that he didn't really know what to do.
What about Mom?
I didn't go to either of them because neither of them believed a word I said, but it was sort of like comforting to talk to her because she was a little bit more in touch with her emotions and how she felt about it. And he was sort of trying to, you know, follow orders, I guess.
You went to, how many times did you go to rehab? You said, is it 18 times?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it had to come from you, so what was rock bottom?
There wasn't one. It's all rock bottom. It all sucked.
When did you, what made you finally make it not a 19th?
I got just sick of it. I mean, it's hard to believe that you wouldn't get sick after 5 of them, but I mean, after 18, I was like, okay, I'm pretty bored of this. It wasn't like I want to go back to rehab. I was like, I'm sick of this cycle, this using drugs, it being so temporary, the fix, then going back into a place for months on end, then getting out and just, you know, rinse, wash, repeat.
This being my life.
Yeah.
Do you believe, and they'll tell you, you're gonna die if you continue on this way? Do you think you would die, or did you still feel invincible?
No, I mean, of course there's that level of feeling that way, but I was, you know, the rate I was going was probably not great. Gonna end up great.
Did you feel like, did you ever get close?
Yeah. Sure.
The whole process for me, I can just speak for myself, it did make me understand him a lot more, and I think it made me a better father. Hopefully it did. I don't know, but I think that, and you'll see it in the film, what happens is, you know, if your kid is going through rough times, you know, the parent your main job is to keep your child safe. So I would do anything. I felt at a loss, so I would do anything that, as we say in the film, anybody with a desk and a diploma, I would listen to them, and the whole idea of tough love and you have to be a certain way, and it's not my nature, it's not the way I am built, but I went and did that, you know, and I think that, you know, at the end of the day, I know my child better than an expert does, and I probably should have trusted my own instinct. And that's one of the things I did learn about the whole experience. No, he's my son. I love him. It doesn't matter. He's more important than anything that could happen to me. I care more about him. He's most important, and Jake and Romy and my family, they're the most important. So that doesn't factor in.
What is your advice, Rob, to parents who might be in this situation with a kid that's struggling?
I think listen to your kids. Go, you know, try to spend as much time you can with your kids. Try to understand your kids, and don't punish them, because, this is my opinion. In my opinion, the reason they're taking, whether it's drugs or alcohol or gambling, whatever they're doing it because there's a pain. There's something inside they don't feel good. They don't feel good about themselves, and they're self-medicating. So try to understand why it is they're not feeling good. Kids that don't use drugs at all, just going through teenage years, is difficult. So you have to just stay with them and try to understand as best you can. And whatever you do, don't be punitive, because I don't think that helps at all.
What worked for you that Mom and Dad did, and what didn't?
You know, everything. What worked is when they kind of like were like, you know what, they turned their back and they're like, you know, you got to figure it out for yourself. You're an adult now, like this is getting old, like, you know, sort of not like we don't care, but just like, you know, I don't know.
Nick, if Dad said from the very beginning, God, I love you, I think you seems to be in terrible pain, and I hope you work it out, and know I always love you, and do you think you would have, instead of it would have been a shorter journey? Maybe not 18 rehabs, you might have gotten there quicker, or no?
I think it needed to happen the way it happened. I was a real, like, nutcase. I was crazy. And I just, it was more than drugs. It's really always about more than that. And I needed a lot of that sort of discipline. It's, you know, it's life. Life goes on. Life happens. Things flare up.
Life. Yeah.
I don't know.
You've done so many films that everyone loves. Now you've done a new film called Being Charlie.
Right, Being Charlie, and it's the most personal film of anything I've done. I worked on it with my son, Nick Reiner, who's one of the screenwriters. He wrote it about, it's loosely based on his experience, and I'm not, saying anything we haven't talked about, but he had some struggles from the time he was 15 to 19 with substance abuse, and he was in and out of a number of rehab facilities, and, it was a very tough time, but he met somebody there, and they started writing together, and he started working on an idea about the life in rehab, and he showed it to me, and it was initially a half-hour comedy, and I said, Nick, I think it could go deeper than this. It's funny, but you can go deeper. And eventually, we developed this movie. And
was it hard to work with your son as a writer? Because directors and writers, they should collaborate well together, but the director makes the final call.
Yes,
Is that there's sometimes some stress there?
Well, it's stress normally in any situation, but the particular situation of the subject matter of this, it was very difficult at times, but it was the most creative, the most fulfilling experience I've ever had. And what it did, I mean, we didn't go into it to say, okay, there's going to be a catharsis, or we're going to, it's going to be a therapeutic experience. But what happened was it forced me to see really what he had been going through. And I knew a lot of it, but I didn't know all of it. And I think it forced him to see what I had experienced and what his mother had experienced.
How many years ago did he recover?
Well, he's been good now for 3 years. I mean, he's doing great, and he's writing another thing. And
take a little bit from that, and people have asked me many times, had I ever thought of running for elected office, and there was a discussion about running for governor, and the five of us, my wife and I, Michelle, and our three kids, Nick and Jake and Romy, we all sat around and talked about it, and I polled 40% in my own family.
I mean, there must be some real, weight and baggage to directing a movie written by your son about a son and a father who have, have these problems.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's very hard. And there were times when we, just like when we went through it, there were times when we fought. But there was also great highs and great emotional feeling.
Now, what brings you here today is your son, right?
Yeah. My son, Nick Reiner, wrote a screenplay based on very loosely based, but taken from his life and his relationship to me. It's not a secret. He went through a very tough time with drugs. From the time he was like 15 to 19, he was in and out of different rehab places. And it's what he went through and his relationship to me and his mother and what we experienced in his life at that point. And the film is really about that.
Was there something that was revealed to you by your son in this process that you blew your mind?
Yes. I mean, listen, I went to all the meetings with him, the family meetings, the parents and all that stuff. And you hear certain things, but you don't know the depth of where he went. And that's what I found out. I found that, there were times he was on the streets that, I didn't know how bad it was, or, the kinds of people that he came in contact with. He told me this morning, I was just on Howard Stern, he told, and I found out something new. There was a guy in a homeless shelter who had 666 tattooed across his forehead,
Yikes.
I mean, this is they're not the highest quality people,
people to hang out with.
Hang out with. Yeah. And to me, if you're going to make a movie that reflects life in any way, it's dark and it's light. It's funny and it's dramatic and it has all these things. So yeah, there are some really dark, tough things in this movie. I mean, really black. As dark and deep as you can get in a going down in that well, and it's dark down there. But it's also funny. And my son tells me about one of the times he was in a rehab place and he's having to clean the bathroom up with a guy, and the guy is telling him about getting head from somebody and getting and scoring some heroin, and my son's saying, I don't get it. Wait a minute, you got the head and the heroin? How does that work? What did this guy get out of this deal, And so that became a very funny scene, but it was a real thing that happened to him. 22 years old, the same time, a little bit later than where Charlie is, but I you know, I had struggled with, you know, my own issues. I had written for Smothers Brothers when I was 21, and I had done things when I was younger, and I had been through, you know, a lot of, the drugs at the time. There were more psychedelics in those days. It wasn't as much cocaine or heroin. There was a lot of
mushrooms,
LSD and
yeah.
stuff like that. And I was doing a lot of that stuff, trying to figure out what was going on with me. And I, you know, had a father who was a high achiever, and, you know, sometimes it's tough to live up to you know, your father, and not necessarily if they're even in show business. If a father is doing something, you want to establish yourself, be your own person. And I went into some really bad places, and I had a really hard time, and it took me a little while to start figuring stuff out. But, you know, it could hit anybody, you know, it could hit anybody.